has the week been for you? We were 1 week out from the budget. One way of playing that, of course, is the banks. Is that what your clients have been looking to, or have they been looking elsewhere?
Banks are always pretty high in our numbers anyway. It's been pretty flat in terms of trading volumes, so people are still sitting on the sidelines, really only coming to market if something very interesting is happening, or we do see sort of big chunks being moved around by large private investors, but they're for personal reasons. They're not sort of market moving, widely spread sentiment issues at all. They tend to be individuals making big decisions. So we have seen the banks rise back up in the numbers, and that tends to happen when the market flattens out. Most of our investors hold banks, so they will either add to their holdings or sell them down if they're seeing something interesting happening. They're pretty mixed in terms of trading, so we're not seeing huge amounts of buying or huge amounts of selling. We're seeing that mix at the margin with people kind of moving their portfolios around a little bit. We have over the last few years seen people dramatically reducing their exposure to financials, so it's been really over a 5-year period. They're down nearly 50%, many of them, over the last 5 years when you contemplate where prices used to be and where they are now. And investors have also come to terms with the fact that they are not going to get the dividends that they were hoping for, perhaps, in the current environment. And so a lot of them are thinking, where can I go other than banks? But the core of the portfolio always remains. They're always still in there. So they're rising back up the numbers, but that's primarily because other things have fallen away.
Isn't it interesting that there's not a lot of conviction either way by the sounds of things? Maybe everyone's just a bit nervous heading into the US election. Let's talk about healthcare. Mesoblast is obviously top of the news today. Not a great day for anybody holding Mesoblast shares. But CSL as well, it's an interesting space. It's been very active this year. How about the last week?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mesoblast is one of our trading stocks. It's one of the ones, and we're not unusual. It's been traded certainly in the last few months, so much activity, people really interested in it, but it's not a conviction hold, right? It's people sort of looking to get that bump when there's some positive news, and obviously hoping to get the hell out before you get the bad news. Today's obviously been a pretty brutal day for those who were holding, hoping for the good news coming through. Didn't quite work. So tough day for a lot of traders who've been holding that. Hopefully they were making some quick decisions this morning. CSL, completely different story, right? You're talking about companies at completely different ends of the healthcare spectrum. So one that's highly speculative, one that is very profitable, very consistent, continues to do well. It's a really high conviction stock among our investors. It's not a trading stock at all. It is one that they love, they hold, and they will buy on weakness. What's been really interesting, we've seen huge buying around the high 280s, so around the $289 mark. They mostly love to buy it when it's in the 270s.
I remember you saying 270 to 290 was their sweet spot, but that range is extending, is it?
It seems that they've got conviction really pushing up a bit higher now. So that's quite surprising to see. And it was interesting, we published videos on various analysis, and there was some of our technical analysis was like, there's a real floor around the 270 mark. Highly unlikely it will break through that. If you do see it breaking through, you've really got to look at your position. Our guys know there's a real support range there, because that's their support. They will never, ever, ever let it go below there without picking up a little bit more.
Okay, good to know. And A2 Milk, another tough week for shareholders there. I think people were quite surprised at the weakness of the results. How did your clients trade that?
They mostly saw it as a massive opportunity. So we saw a 92% buy on A2 Milk. A lot of people seeing that as an opportunity to pick up something they've liked for a long time. It's been one of our really popular stocks. When things get flat and there's not a lot of big news in the big names, as our analysts call it, it's miners and milk. That's where they go. That's where they go for the stuff that they want to pick up a little bit of upside. And given the weakness in the stock, they've seen that as a real opportunity to get in. So really, really high conviction and enthusiasm, despite the fact it's come off.
And let's go overseas. What's been happening there? One thing that caught my eye was the listing of Palantir. They got a lot of attention in the run-up. Not a great debut by the looks of things, but how was that traded?
It's certainly caught the attention of a lot of our investors, so that's been quite interesting. It's a data analytics company. It's highly secretive. Peter Thiel was part of the founding group, so he's sort of famous, as they refer to the PayPal mafia of that group. He's obviously got a very long track record, but he's also very pro-Trump, so there's quite a strong political alignment there, which is contentious for people, right? There's a lot to be concerned about if Trump doesn't win the election. This is not a profitable company. They're quite explicit about the fact that they don't make a profit currently. They've got most of their revenues coming from 3 different clients.
But that doesn't bother a lot of people when it comes to money making, but at some point you imagine it's got to.
Yeah, so big buy from our investors, but obviously a fair amount of political risk with that one.
And I'll do one more on overseas because it is just such a topical time over in the US. Anything else catching your client's eye?
So it's car manufacturers
Yeah,
again.
it's
Always the car manufacturers.
I was trying to give you an option to say something else, but I thought I bet it's car manufacturers.
It's car manufacturers. Interestingly enough, Rolls-Royce was in there. Which is listed in the UK, not in the US. Most of our trading is in the US, but it's in the UK. It was a sell. There you go. Tesla was also a sell, but Nikola had a big spike on theories that GM's going to take a bigger stake in them. So Nikola, which has been this sort of interesting little spec buy on the side, quite a bit of speculation, big bump in the share price. A lot of our investors were taking profit, so that was quite interesting to watch. They're not in that one for the long run.
Okay, well, very interesting today. Gemma Dale, as always, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
See you next week.